The Monkey's Paw. The White family lived in a small house just outside town, where the road narrowed and the trees grew close together. On a cold, rainy evening, Mr. White sat at the kitchen table playing chess with his teenage son, Herbert. Mrs. White relaxed nearby, scrolling through a magazine while the heater hummed softly in the background. The night felt ordinary, safe, and familiar. Then someone knocked on the door. Herbert jumped up. "I'll get it." Standing outside was a tall man in a rain-soaked jacket. He looked older than Mr. White, with tired eyes and a serious expression. "Morris?" Mr. White said, surprised and pleased. "Sergeant Major Morris?" The man smiled. "That's me. Thought I'd stop by." They hadn't seen him in years. He had spent most of his life overseas in the military, and soon the family was listening as he told stories about faraway places, strange cultures, and dangerous situations. Herbert listened with excitement, while Mr. White asked endless questions. As the evening went on, Morris became quieter. At one point, Herbert noticed something in his hand. "What's that?" Herbert asked. Morris hesitated, then slowly opened his paw. Inside lay a small, dried-up monkey's paw. It looked old and unnatural, like it didn't belong in the modern world. "It's a monkey's paw," Morris said. Mrs. White frowned. "That's creepy," Morris nodded. "It should be." Mr. White leaned forward. "There's a story behind that, isn't there?" "There is," Morris said, "and it's not a good one." He explained that the paw had been enchanted long ago by a holy man who wanted to teach people a lesson. You can mess with fate without paying a price. The paw, Morris said, could grant 3 wishes to 3 different people. Herbert laughed. "So it's basically a cursed genie?" Morris didn't laugh. "Call it whatever you want. All I know is that every person who used it regretted it." Without warning, he tossed the paw into the fireplace. Mrs. White gasped. "Why would you do that?" Morris quickly pulled it back out. "Because I don't want anyone else getting hurt." Mr. White stared at the paw with curiosity. "If it's so bad, why not just throw it away?" Morris shook his head. "People don't listen. They always think they'll be the exception." He stood up and grabbed his coat. "I've said my piece. If you keep it, that's your choice." He left soon after, the door shutting behind him with a sharp click. The room was quiet. Mr. White picked up the paw. It felt dry and lifeless. "It's probably just a story," he said. "An old soldier's superstition." Mrs. White crossed her arms. "I don't like it." Herbert grinned. "Come on, Dad. If it really works, wish for something useful like money." Mr. White laughed. "All right. Just to prove it's nonsense." He held the paw loosely. "I wish for 200 pounds. For a split second, the paw seemed to twitch. Mr. White dropped it immediately. "Did you see that?" he asked. Herbert shook his head. "You imagined it." But Mrs. White felt uneasy. That night, none of them slept well. The next morning, everything seemed normal. Sunlight filled the kitchen, and the events of the night before felt silly. Herbert grabbed his jacket and headed to work at the factory. "Guess we'll be rich by dinner," he joked. Mrs. White smiled weakly and watched him leave. Hours later, there was another knock at the door. This time, the man outside wore a suit. He looked uncomfortable, like he didn't want to be there. "I'm from the factory," he said quietly. "May I come in?" Mrs. White's stomach dropped. The man sat down and folded his hands. "There was an accident today," he said. "Your son was involved." "He didn't suffer." The room spun. "I'm so sorry," the man continued. "The company accepts responsibility. We're offering compensation." Mr. White swallowed hard. "How much?" 200 pounds. No one spoke. The man left soon after, and the house felt unbearably empty. The monkey's paw lay on the shelf, forgotten but not unseen. Days passed. The house felt wrong without Herbert's voice. Mrs. White barely spoke. Mr. White avoided looking at the shelf. One night, Mrs. White suddenly sat up. "The paw," she said. Mr. White froze. "No, we still have another wish," she said. "We can bring him back." Mr. White shook his head. "We don't know what that would mean." "I don't care," she cried. "He was my son. I just want him home." Her grief was too strong. Finally, Mr. White picked up the paw with shaking hands. "I wish my son were alive again," he said. The room grew cold. They went to bed, but neither slept. Then came the sound. A knock at the front door. Mrs. White sat straight up. "It's him!" She ran down the hallway as the knocking came again, slow and heavy. Mr. White followed, his heart pounding. He imagined the factory, the accident, and what might now be standing outside. Mrs. White fumbled with the lock. "Stop!" Mr. White shouted. "Think about this." The knocking grew louder. Panicking, Mr. White grabbed the paw. "I wish my son were dead again," he whispered. The knocking stopped. Mrs. White opened the door. The street was empty. The monkey's paw fell from Mr. White's hand, completely still at last.